Hey friends, welcome back to this week's Behind the Scenes here on the pod, here in the Excellent Example of Being Human community. This week's guest is Scout. I don't even think Scout uses her last name because she's so cool. And I only met Scout a couple of days previous when I was on her podcast, so I don't have many cool stories to tell. But why I wanted to have Scout is you will see that we are very different people. We think, we speak, we show ourselves in the world in very different ways. Scout is very curated, very artistic, very deep, super cool. I am kind of a disaster, like a floating orb of creative energy. So the interview was interesting because of that, and also it was super cool to hear that Scout left her professional job and has already turned this business into such a big something in only 1 year. Also super interesting is that Scout is living with bipolar disorder, and it's a big part of her identity, a big part of her message, and a big reason why she has this blog, because she wants to encourage other people who are dealing with mental illness to tell them, like, hey, you can do this, and hey, it's okay to ask for help, and hey, this is how you help people in your life who are moving through mental illness too. So I hope you enjoy. You got any comments, you got any questions, leave them below, and we are here to answer. And I just want to say thank you so much again for being here. Mwah. Recording. Okay, hey friends, welcome back to an excellent example of being human. Today we have Scout. What's up, Scout?
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. We actually did Scout's podcast yesterday, so now we're just obviously best friends.
Yeah, we're just hanging out all the time.
I know, and we both live in San Diego, so we actually can meet.
I know. That's like the weird part is we keep virtually meeting. Now we have to meet in person.
It's great. It's awesome. So Scout, I said your professional bio in the intro, but in your own words, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, okay, so I'm Scout, and I'm pretty much a mental health advocate. So I have an Instagram, a blog, and a podcast. My Instagram is kind of like daily snapshots of my life, but also infused with a lot of information, such as what is cupping, what is Reiki, encouraging people to meditate and practice gratitude. And then my podcast, which is my favorite medium of all, is where I bring on different female entrepreneurs with an emphasis in the wellness and holistic health space to kind of talk about what it's like to grow their business, what it's like to live a spiritual lifestyle, and what the road to recovery looks like. So I'm big kind of on everything mental health.
And is that from personal experience, or what's your big why behind the direction of all your content?
Yeah, so when I was 14, I had my first depressive episode, which left me into therapy, and it was pretty messy. And then when I was 19 years old, I was formally diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 and general anxiety disorder. And I have been living with bipolar now for almost 13 years, and I've had a lot of bad bumps along the road, but I can confidently say now that I'm always moving forward in a space of healing and recovery, no matter how bad my bipolar may seem to get at any given time. So that's kind of been my motive for kind of preaching mental health to my audience.
Oh man, wow, that's so beautiful. So we'll surely dig deeper into that. Before, can we just like set the stage of who you are? So with a quick fire. So just answer these just simply and quickly.
Okay.
So Scout, where'd you grow up?
San Diego, California.
You did. You grew up here.
Yep.
Okay, so is it so beautiful that you're never leaving?
Yeah, I'm never leaving.
Okay, I like that a lot. Okay, how many siblings do you have?
I have one younger sister.
One younger sister. And are your parents still married, or are they divorced? Are they still in San Diego?
My parents divorced when I was 17. My dad still lives in San Diego, but my mother lives in Los Angeles with my sister.
Oh, okay, awesome. As a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be the editor-in-chief of a fashion magazine.
Oh my gosh, and you're totally creating that for yourself.
Yeah, in a way, it has a lot of similarities.
Yeah. Where did you meet your husband? I saw that you recently got married.
I did recently get married. I met my husband actually when I was 14 years old. I was a freshman in high school, and he came to my high school for his senior year. So he was 3 years older than me. We dated a little bit in high school, but the age difference was a little bit too much. So we broke up, and then we reconnected 6 years ago, and things moved pretty quickly after that.
Oh my goodness. What an amazing love story.
Yeah.
Super
It's a good
cool.
one.
And now you live in San Diego, as you've revealed. And why San Diego? Why are you still here?
I'm a big family person. It's really hard for me to be away from my family. I need that support system, especially being bipolar. Um, and San Diego, and my husband is from San Diego too, so his family is here as well. And over the last 5 years, San Diego has boomed so much. It used to not be so cosmopolitan, and now it's really turning into its own like big little city. So I kind of have everything I need here. There's no reason to leave.
Oh man, I'm never leaving San Diego. I
Right?
cannot think of a cooler city in the US to live in.
The best.
Amen. Virtual high five.
Boom.
Scout, ever since we signed up for our podcast interviews, I've had in my head all week the Shout song. Has anybody ever said that to you? Like in my head, I've just been singing, put your hands up and Scout, you know that song?
I don't even know that song.
What? You don't? Okay, I'll have to play it so people know.
Yeah,
You don't
have to
know? They play it at like every wedding and people go, shout, put your hands up and
Oh
shout.
yeah, and Scout. And you keep
Yeah.
saying Scout?
Yes. Yes.
That's
just so you know.
hilarious. I was like, there's a song with Scout? What? That's awesome.
No. I made it up. Okay, so yes, you're welcome. So, okay, Scout. So right now you are the curator and editor of a lifestyle blog.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through the behind the scenes of how you even birthed this project?
Yeah, so I left my past job about a year and a half ago, and I kind of wrote down all my skill sets, and they were things like content creation, WordPress management, operational stuff, writing, social media, and everything kind of added up to that blogging had the exact same criteria that you needed to do it. And so it was kind of a way for me to do something on my own without going out and working for somebody else. So I just kind of put all my skills to use and realized that blogging and then ultimately podcasting was a combination of all of the favorite things that I like to do.
So there are so many listeners who have these big ideas in the back of their head. They want to start their own passion project too, but they keep hitting moments of resistance. So what was a big hurdle of resistance that you had to overcome to be confident enough to start your own project like this?
Yeah, so I've always been a doer. I started my own magazine when I was 22 years old, and it was sold in Barnes& and Noble and newsstands nationwide. So for me, I love starting things. It's like kind of my jam. But I would say to anyone that's wanting to start their own thing but finding blocks, it's probably just fear. You're probably just afraid. And my rule of thumb is if fear is the only thing in your way of achieving your dreams, then you need to do it anyways, period, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
So I always kind of take a personal inventory. And if fear is driving my decision making, then I need to make a change. I need to move forward with that thing.
I love how methodical you are. Like you actually have some strategy behind it. Like the spirituality world can get really esoteric and just like, oh, well, tune in and ask your intuition. And yes, that's a huge part, but we also need the container, right? Like I love how you said you mapped out what your assets were and you were like, done. Okay, this sounds like it makes sense for me.
Yeah, and then I launched my blog within like a month. I launched with 10 articles. I got everything I needed. And like the only thing I can say to people is just do it. Like don't think and just go.
Yeah. And so now it's been a year and a half since you launched the blog?
Yes. And then I think it's a year in June or July that I launched my podcast.
Amazing. Okay. And so how do you keep yourself accountable? That's another thing that people are always asking me about.
Yeah. To be honest, I work really well under myself. So I don't really need a whole lot of self-discipline when it comes to working. I'm kind of a workaholic. So when I start something, I jump in like 150%. So staying on track of things, organizing things, making things move forward, that's kind of where my strengths lie. So I really have never really needed too much motivation. I like working like way too much. I should probably like calm down. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, it's always come naturally. And I know that kind of sucks, but it does.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all have our own mixed bag of what we're great at and what we are struggling through. So for somebody who maybe organization or self-discipline or whatever else the components are that allow you to be a really rocking entrepreneur, for somebody that it doesn't come easily to them, what are some super simple to-dos that maybe seem really obvious to you as an organized type A kind of person, but that they could implement to help them keep the project
Yeah,
moving forward?
I would time block out your day. So
Mm.
saying I work at 9, I stop working at 5 or whatever the hours are, and keeping to a schedule. So waking up at the same time, making sure you start at the exact same time. I think that's something that's helped me tremendously. Like I don't just wake up and dilly dally and figure out what I have to do. I know that I have to be at work. So kind of treating it almost like a 9 to 5 job, I think is really helpful. And then to-do lists are my favorite thing in the world. I write down a lot of, like I have to write stuff down in order for me to kind of gauge and get through it. So if you have to-do lists like the night before, write down what you need to do the day after, have it all listed on a list. That way you wake up prepared and ready to go.
Yeah. And energetically, it's all about empowerment, right? Empowerment is the most momentous energy that we can tap into when we have clarity and when we feel empowered to make decisions that are rooted in purposefulness,
Exactly.
that are rooted in purpose. Then it's easy to move forward. It's easier, at least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's beautiful. So you mentioned your big why behind what you do. So can we talk about experiencing mental illness, like being
Yeah.
bipolar? How do you say it in a politically correct way? Do you say I am bipolar, or do you say I have bipolar disorder?
I personally say I am bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure everyone's different, and some might say I have bipolar. I say I am bipolar. I don't, to be honest, I don't really know why, but that's just the kind of vernacular I use around it.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell us what you're experiencing and how you were diagnosed, and how have you overcome this to start your own business and be such a shining light in the world?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick abbreviated version because
Okay.
I recorded a whole testimony, episode 17 of my journey, and it's a really long one, but I'll condense it here real quick. So,
Okay. We'll link that too. So,
okay, yeah. So when I was 14, I had my first depressive episode. And I'm going to leave nothing back, just letting you know.
okay. Okay. Go for it.
I started cutting myself and not eating, and then my school found out and told my parents, and they signed me up for therapy where I took a 500 question test that listed me borderline, chronic, and clinical depression. When I was 19 years old, I was formally diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 and general anxiety disorder. And when that happened, I was going to college in New York. I got on the next flight home because I was so distraught, and I never returned to college because it was such a monumental kind of diagnosis for me, and I had to wrap my head around what this meant. I checked myself into an outpatient program, which is called an intensive outpatient program, where you go to therapy for like 4 hours a day and group therapy and lecture. That summer, I was having a lot of suicidal ideation, and my therapist told me to go to the emergency room where they committed me under a 5150 hold, which is where you are labeled as a threat to yourself and to others. So like they wouldn't even let my dad drive me there. That had to be escorted. And that was super traumatizing for me. And then I just fell into this pattern of quitting everything I started. I dropped out of school 3 times. I quit every job I would do. I was going nowhere fast, and I was pretty lost up until my husband and I got together. My husband is a recovering addict. He's 7 years sober, and he kind of showed me the reins to recovery. And that's when I started taking my recovery into my own hands, because I wanted this relationship to last. I didn't want to lose another thing. So I started down that path. Recently, I've been dealing with some symptoms that are very rare to bipolar, which is catatonia, which is when your entire body becomes paralyzed, and you can't move or talk, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for 3 hours. I was in a fit of one for a month 2 years ago, which was really insane. And now I am dealing with psychosis problems. So I have voices in my head. Most recently, they were telling me to kill myself. So I was on suicide watch for a week, I think like now 2 months ago. So it's something that's always knocking on my door. I'm always dipping down, dipping up, dipping down, dipping up, then staying stable for a little bit, and then dipping down again. I try to catch it as early as I can. I've learned all my triggers, but it really is a grueling, grueling disease that has ruined a lot of my life. But I definitely am stronger now. I don't quit anything anymore. I use my resources. I use my tools. I get help. But as you can see, the symptoms kind of keep coming at me. So it's been a journey for sure.
And there's so much, like, that's very heavy and feels like it could be a lot easier to just surrender to it and allow it to just totally suck you up and absorb you. So what is your self-talk like? Like, it requires obviously so much integrity, right? You have to, in those moments where you're scared or where you just feel like you're sinking, make an empowered choice and say, okay, what could help me right now? And then you have to implement it and do it.
Yes.
So what's that process for you? How do you maintain that integrity when you're tired and when you're scared? And
Well, what I'll do is I'll take my thoughts. So if they're starting to get negative or in more of a depressing mood, I'll actually challenge each of my thoughts and replace them with more balanced thinking. So instead of saying I'm depressed, I'll say, well, I'm not feeling my best right now. I will get through it and come out the other end. So I'll replace these negative thoughts with a little bit more balanced and realistic thinking, so as to not catastrophize and fortune tell and going down that kind of route. I just recently started using like manifestation positive affirmations. Like after I meditate, I'll say, I am happy, I am safe, I am centered, I am fulfilled, just over and over and over again, just to kind of reiterate all those positive things and kind of push out all the negative stuff. So challenging my thoughts is my main tool.
Yeah. And have you noticed that the type of media that you ingest or the type of friendships that you keep or the type of foods that you eat, have you noticed that any of those things contribute to that mental integrity?
If I overstretch myself too thin socially, which I've been known to do, that's when I can start going down a road. Also, eating is so crucial. I feel 100 times better when I eat healthy. If I don't eat healthy, I'm tired and sluggish, which then makes me feel lazy, which then makes me feel sad, which makes me feel depressed. It's kind of like this wave that just happens. So eating healthy is a super easy way to prevent negativity for sure.
Yeah, that's huge, right? Because everything's connected. It's an ecosystem. So,
Exactly.
and we can understand the basic formula of like, okay, I eat this, I metabolize this, and it allows me to show up a certain way in the world. But we forget that we're continually metabolizing everything we come in contact with. So if you meet a friend for lunch and they're really anxious and start pulling you down their rabbit hole, like we metabolize that energy and take it on.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
so hard for me to set up that wall. I'm so bad at that. Like, if someone's having a rough day, I mean, if even on the fucking TV, like I watch The Voice singing competitions. Every time someone gets kicked off, I start crying. Like, why can't I separate myself from everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's a gift. You're probably an empath, and that's what allows you to be such a specific and influential curator of words, of art, of aesthetics, because you can tap into what people, like you're speaking the language with them energetically. But yes, then we have to find a way as empaths to also protect our own energy, because once this gets fucked up, we can't share the art anymore.
Exactly. It's so true. It's such a hard balance.
Yeah. Are there any practices that you've been trying that you feel have helped you not take on the energy of other people so you can continue to create?
Yeah, my grandma taught me this actually.
Your grandma?
I know, she's amazing. She's a Reiki too. She's awesome.
Wow.
She does a lot of energy work. Uh, to kind of cast my aura in. So visualizing the aura coming in, and settling about 6 to 12 inches before you and claiming this is your energy. And so visualizing the boundaries and the parameters of where your energy starts and ends is immensely helpful. She did like this. We were at my sister's graduation and there were so many people and I was getting so nervous because I was attaching to everybody's energy. And we did this like visualization of like bringing the aura in up close to us and keeping it there almost like a shield.
Mm-hmm.
That visualization helps me a lot, especially when I'm in crowds. I'll kind of do that visualization and just kind of center myself that way.
Yeah. And nobody even has to know.
Yeah, no one even knows. You're just standing there and doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What a great exercise. Thank you for sharing that. So we know that mental illness advocacy is your why. What is your message behind it? Like, what do you want people who are suffering through mental illness or have a loved one and they're just trying to navigate this and figure it out? What's your message for them?
It's a big one. I guess my message for those suffering is that just because you experience these ups and these downs or whatever your mental illness is hitting you with, that doesn't define your success as a human being, as an entrepreneur, as a career woman or man, as a friend, a sister, a spouse. So no matter how shitty it feels in any given moment, you will get out of it. Mm-hmm. You will succeed and you will do things that you're proud of. Learning how to navigate bipolar disorder is highly tough. And sometimes the water seems too deep, but know that the water is always more shallow than you really think it is. So you can come out the other side. And for those dealing with someone with bipolar disorder, just remain patient, understand that they're going through a lot and that it's a very abstract illness to fight. I would just say remain patient with them, remain loving, and educate yourself. Ask them what they need in any given moment. Ask them, if I see you going down this rabbit hole, or if I see you engaging in this behaviors, what would be most beneficial for me to then say to you at that given point? That way, you can almost train your loved ones to, and it's better that way if there's an open communication about that, because if they know exactly how to treat you and respond to you, you're going to get better quicker. So it's definitely takes a village for sure. I mean, I have all hands on deck with my family when I'm not feeling well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Was that something that you had to learn, that it was okay to ask for help?
I think it took me a long time to realize that what I was feeling wasn't normal. So I would complain about it, but I didn't. It took me a while for me to say, fuck no, I have a fucking problem and this is what's going to happen. And now I ask for help all the time. I mean, sometimes I'll get depressed and I will want to ask for help just because I don't want my family to go through it again and to worry about me. But my number one rule is always ask for help.
Yeah. And so do you have a protocol in place, like even with your husband, if you're starting to get anxious or if you're starting to just shut down, like does he recognize and he has a little protocol that he implements?
Yeah. So it took us a while to figure out that script, right?
Yeah.
But now I would say he knows exactly when I'm not feeling better, what to say, what to suggest, what not to suggest, what not to say. Because you might think you're saying something that's helpful, but it's totally triggering. So I would say he's got a good script down for sure.
And that's so valuable even outside of mental illness.
Yeah, that's like just communication 101. Like, and my husband and I are all about that. Like, if you get into a fight or if something's bothering you, how do you communicate that? How do you want to be treated afterwards? All that stuff. I think those kinds of conversations are super important.
Absolutely. So for a simple example, outside of mental illness, my husband's oh my gosh, he's not my husband. My boyfriend's in law school. And it can get really toxic and he can be really stressed out. And so he would come home and our inclination, or maybe just mine, I don't want to put that on every woman, but is to just fix and be like, what can I do? How can I help? And we had to one day be like, okay, what are we actually going to do? And so now I just smile and I say, hi. And then he takes 30 minutes of time alone in the bedroom to just like decompress and find a center, and then comes out and we're like, then we can chat.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so,
And just
I
so
love
simple. But like you said, we had to build that script. And although maybe some people think that's maybe uncomfortable to like set a rigid guideline for, like they think, well, my husband should be excited to see me when they come home. But that's just silly. Like, what's the point of hanging on to shoulds?
Yeah, you can't have certain expectations of everybody. Everybody's different.
Yeah, absolutely. So in review by Scout, am I saying that properly?
You are.
Yes, I love how you spelled it. Okay, so in review by Scout, what kind of content are you publishing? And is it specifically for mental illness? Is it for everybody? Can you just tell us more about what you're creating?
Yeah, I focus more on my podcast and my blog these days, but on my blog, I'll post mental health posts, but then I'll also do personal things. Like I just had my wedding, so I posted about my wedding. But mainly it's what I like to call mental strength. It's under a mental strength category because I don't want it to be limited just to those with a mental illness. I want to have a dialogue around mental health conversation that can apply to everyone and everybody. So I do kind of a mixture of that and then my personal life.
So what is mental strength?
Mental strength is just learning how to navigate your emotions and your thoughts effectively. So listening to cues from your brain, or understanding when you're sad and what that means, or strengthening certain tools like self-discipline. I wrote a whole article about discipline or disappointment, which is a Tony Robbins phrase where if you ask yourself at every step of the day, like in all your steps of the day, will I choose discipline or will I choose disappointment? You're more likely to choose discipline by asking that question. So tools like that, I love sharing. I also have started now having a big emphasis on spirituality and holistic health, which is a very new progression. It started, I think, in like January when I went to, well, it actually started last year, but it really manifested in January when I had a spiritual awakening on my honeymoon. So I also like to incorporate a lot of spirituality as well.
Beautiful. What was your spiritual awakening? What happened?
So I was in Tulum and I was reading Gabrielle Bernstein's
You were in
book.
Tulum?
Yeah.
Tulum is like super potent vortex.
Super. It is
so cool.
High vibrational energy. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It is such a healing hub. So I was reading these books and it was talking about praying to the universe and how the universe provides and how there's all these synchronicities. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm just going to try to pray and see what happens. And I started praying, and suddenly like a wave of anxiety just completely left my body. And I felt so peaceful and serene and in tune. And the universe started showing me all these different synchronicities all of a sudden really fast in like 2 days. And I was totally blown away. Like I was worrying about what others were going to think about when I came home and wanted to pursue a spiritual path. So I prayed to my universe to send me a sign. And I'm walking down the beach and this song is in my head and it's not playing anywhere at all. It's just in my head, and it's in my head and it's in my head and it's going over and over. And I'm like, wait a minute, what song am I singing? And the song was, if you don't like my fire, don't come around. And I was like, mind blown. I was like, asked and it was delivered. And we had so many more synchronicities after that. And I felt just this beautiful light healing energy all over for days. And I'm like struggling to get that back now in real life. It's a little bit harder, but it was such a transformational experience.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. And such an amazing example that the spiritual journey isn't like you need to put in 10 years before you feel the benefits. It's you buy in. You buy in mind, body, soul, and the universe is like literally waiting in the wings for you to buy in so it can just shower you with all the shit that you want. Yes.
Yes, it is for sure. It's crazy to think about.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Okay. Scout, do you have something special that you want to share for our behind the scenes Patreon people?
Yes, I do. I want to talk about gratitude.
Yeah.
Basically, what I love so much about gratitude is that you cannot stay in a fear-based state and a love-based state at the same time. So when you are expressing gratitude, you are literally living in a love-based state of mind, it is impossible to feel fear while you're dishing out gratitude. So if you are ever not feeling well, or if you're ever in a case of depression, sadness, frustration, anger, take 2 minutes out of your day to stop and list 5 things you're grateful for and really feel them, like feel the gratitude. It will immediately kind of transform the energy. I remember when I used to work and manage an office, everyone was having like a really bad day and it was just an off energy day for everybody. So I told everyone to put their pencils down, close their computers, look up, and we're going to go around the room and we're going to list 5 things that we're grateful for. Everybody did it. And by the time we finished, the energy was light and beautiful and so much more energized in a positive way. So if there's anything you take away from me, gratitude is key always.
Oh, I love that. And what a beautiful exercise that you did for your whole office.
Yeah, it was awesome. It worked so well.
And it was free. And it took probably, 20 minutes?
Not even. There was only like 10 of us. It took like 5 minutes to go around the room, and we were instantly like that, feeling better.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Scout.
Yeah.
Okay, so something we do on this podcast is called the jar of lulls,
Okay.
like LOL. So these are funny prompts that past guests have added to the jar. So we're just going to go through a couple, and then we'll have you add one before we get off.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you ready?
I'm excited.
Some are quite ridiculous, so I might just skip some. Okay, so Scout, what is worse? If someone farts in close quarters, or if you say a joke really enthusiastically and the crowd doesn't get it?
Definitely the fart for sure.
Most other people have picked the joke.
Really? I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's great. Okay, awesome. Well, you're the first fart picker ever. All right. No, that was dumb. Okay, tell a joke without thinking. No pressure if you can't think of one.
I cannot think of one. Oh, I have no jokes.
That's okay. That's what I feel. I need to have just a joke like in my pocket for every time someone just says, well, can you tell a joke?
Yeah,
Okay.
I literally no jokes.
That's okay. What is the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you this year?
This year?
Yes.
Nothing really is embarrassing has happened to me this year.
Okay, what's the most embarrassing thing of all time?
Of all times?
Yeah.
I'll tell you something.
Okay.
My mom and I wanted to read I write poetry, and I wanted to read some of my poetry. And so we looked up open mic nights in Los Angeles, and we found one, and we went there. We were like 2 hours early because they had it all wrong on the internet, whatever. So we were just like waiting around. I didn't even see the sign up list go up, even though I was there so early. So I missed getting first. So I was like 4th, or I was like 5th. And we're in the audience, and my short story that I was going to read was like really fucked up, like weird sex shit. And the first person goes on and they're a comedian. The second person goes on and they're a comedian. The third person goes on and they're a comedian. And I look at my mom, I'm like, Mom, it's comedy night. And she was like, I don't care. We've traveled all this way. We've waited.
Oh, no.
You are getting up on that stage and you are reciting your poem. And I did that at comedy night.
And I feel like that could be like, people could think that you just had a really bizarre act.
I told them, I opened it, I was like, I'm not a comedian. I just wrote a poem for you guys.
Were they like, okay?
They actually thought I was funny for saying that. So I was like, points for me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I've definitely seen comedians who go up and they're just like really straight face and you have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, but people just like get the giggles. Okay, that's a big one. That's really impressive that you made yourself go up there.
My mom was like, you're going up there.
Oh my gosh. Choice. Okay, your last question is, what kind of cult would you start?
A women empowerment cult.
Women empowerment cult. Okay, what would be like a ritual that the cult has to do?
We all have to go skinny dipping.
So when I was in Tulum, we hosted a retreat in Tulum. And when we were there was a naked retreat next to us. And so every day naked women would be out or like covered in clay and they'd be like, can you take a picture of us? It was funny. It was really funny, but it also was really cool that they were just like naked nudies the whole week.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Yes, everybody's like pretty topless in Tulum. Would you agree?
No, I didn't see any topless people.
What? Everyone was topless when I was there.
Oh, I saw one. I saw one.
Oh, I saw like moms like building sandcastles topless, like with their kids, or like boobs bumping into the. Oh, I just like accepted that everyone was topless, so I went topless.
Okay, we clearly were at different parts of the beach.
There, I know. Okay, Scout, do you have a question that you want to add? It doesn't have to necessarily be comedy based. It can just be kind of like I'll give you an example. Some other questions are like, what's the strangest fact you know? One is like, what's the strangest place you've had sex? Got any questions?
Let me think about this for a second.
Okay.
A question. What's like the most useless skill you have?
Love it. Okay.
Like juggling or something.
That's a really good one. Okay. Adding it.
Yay.
Scout, thank you so much for being here. How can everybody find you?
Okay, one, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. Everyone can find me on my Instagram, which is @by.scout, which is by.scout. That's kind of like my main area. You can figure out how to email me, check out my podcast, all that stuff there. So that's the best place to find me.
Amazing. So we'll link that. We'll link the podcast. Everyone's definitely has to check it out, and we'll link your website.
Okay, sounds perfect.
Amazing. Thank you, Scout.
Thank you. Bye.